here the board will effectively be round 13 of the 2026 FI Formula 1 World Championship, which is the Hungarian Grand Prix held nowhere else than at the Hungarian circuit, which obviously made its debut exact 40 years ago. That is right, that's in 1986 when the Iron Curtain was about to fall, and obviously it's been a permanent fixture ever since, and it is actually one of the tracks that has one of the longest contracts, at least outgoing contracts, pretty much stretching over the next decade. So over here we will jump into the cockpit of this beatable Scarlet Ferrari SF1000T818 Formula 1 Racing Simulator, and to show you how to plant it on a pole position, because me, Jan the Smiling Sun Champion, has always been on pole position! Yeah! That's right. So 5, Grand Prix over here. I planted it on a pole position 5 times. I also said the 4 fastest laps, and scored the 3 victories, and obviously finished second on 1 occasion. So, I'm sort of an expert over here, even though at the beginning, obviously, I had a torrid race in 2010. It's definitely not one of my favorite tracks, but again, it is the track that I've historically been very successful, especially in the qualifying, same for Scuderia Ferrari, with some brilliant victories by Michael Schumacher. And of course, now it is pretty much the only track, along with the Yas Marina circuit, where we've actually been in Abu Dhabi, where we always planted it on pole position. So first, we will take a look at the setup, because I think, we have really fine-tuned this car. Obviously, it's still gonna be the F125 cars, but with F126 cars, it's gonna be a real fun. And because we fine-tuned the setup, the car is nice and stable through the corners and can deliver you a good speed and also a good top speed, so that if you plant it on a pole position, all you need to do is to defend it up until the checkered flag falls, and then you can go to the nearby water park to cool down in a glorious but also scorching mid-eastern summer heat. So over here we will then go on the warm-up lap, and then we will go on a hot lap and see if we can master it definitely below 80 seconds. Are you ready? Of course you are. So I'm already in my fashion, so let me climb here into the cockpit, and over here we will take this Ferrari F125 on a spin around, of course, the track none other than the Hungarian. So as you can see over here, we went through several wonderful tracks over here. And what to tell you about the about the Hungary over here is that obviously it doesn't feature so many turns, but it is a short lap, and you got 70 laps. So over here, the race can be a real challenge, and there are a lot of corners like the last one over here, when you really have to, be very patient over here. Not so many turns as you can see, but again, it is nestled in that wonderful Central European countryside or Eastern European countryside, and the weather can also play the part. So however, you don't need to adjust for the weather so much. Why is that? Because you will always be running very high wind. The wind obviously over here is Monaco light, so we are pretty much going on from Belgium over here to another extreme, which is the Hungarian ring. So let's take a look at that all-important setup, because if you can go with the car and be confident over here to tackle every turn as it's supposed to be tackled, that's pretty much all you need. And here I will also talk about how to exactly fine-tune it. So the fuel load stays at 10 kg, 10 kilograms, but for the aerodynamics, you're looking at front wing aero of 50 and the rear wing aero at 50. Sometimes you would, pull the wings a little bit down, just like, for example, I did in the 2024, that I won in a brilliant style, but you can see that it did hamper me, for example, if there would be rainy weather. So, 50-50 still gives you a really good top speed, especially with Scuderia Ferrari, so we just keep it there. For the transmission, differential adjustment on throttle will be at 100%. Differential adjustment of throttle will then be at the 30%. That is good, obviously, for the rotation that you can have with the car. For the suspension geometry, front camber at minus 3.50 degrees, rear camber then at minus 2.00 degrees, front toe out all the way to the left at 0.00 degrees, rear toe in at 0.10 degrees. Now suspension, here we will fine tune it a little bit. So front suspension very firm at 41, rear suspension again, relatively soft, very soft at 1, but the until roll bar, because obviously it features lots of turns, changes of the direction. So the last thing you want to do is when you go on the throttle or when you turn, but especially when you engage, that acceleration pedal, and you don't have a traction, that the car starts rolling. So we will put the anti-roll bars very firm, front anti-roll bar at 16, rear anti-roll bar at 17. You might notice it's the same as in Belgium, and it's really great then through the corners, because you can just put your foot down, and again you don't have to worry that the car will suddenly snap on you, like for example Lewis Hamilton likes to say. So over here for the front ride height, it will be at 21, rear ride height at 44. That's a bit dangerous because obviously there are some of the high curves, but if you avoid the curves over here, such kind of ride height will give you competitive advantage. For the brakes, front brake bias will be at 56%, brake pressure of course at 100%. Once you know how to tackle the corners, you will be fine. Now for the tire pressures, so obviously over here it will be important to take into consideration that we are actually racing right in the middle of the European summer. So what does it mean in reality? It means that the front right tire pressure will be all the way to the maximum and 29.5 psi per square inch, and front left tire pressure will also be all the way to the maximum at 29.5 psi per square inch. And we will do the same with the right rear tires at 26.5 psi per square inch, and also for the rear left tire pressure at 26.5 psi per square inch, because that also improves your top speed. But however, of course, it is because the tires are not so soft, it's not particularly great through the cornering and the traction, but because we adjusted, fine-tuned it in other sections like the suspension geometry and the differential, then this combination will work, like a treat. Again, if you put the tires softer, what will simply happen is that you could overheat, and especially if it's over 30 degrees or 40 degrees Celsius. Now in this time trial, the track is 38 degrees Celsius. You definitely, do not want to overheat the tires. You would have to stop more, do lots of the qualifying laps, like Michael Schumacher, for example, had to do, and you can again keep your options open with the high tire pressures. So that would be the setup. Now let's go here for the warm-up lap. So over here, so this is Hungarian, and you can see Hungarian obviously very well developed over here. One of the most challenging parts is actually going here to the pit lane. That's a difficult one. Go only to the second gear, but here third, fourth gear, that final turn, it is important to get on the throttle early, but without any wheel spin. Any wheel spin, they just push you down the main straight. Here is the podium. Here is where you can get that ceramics trophy. There was obviously that Verstappen got it broken next to the F1 pedal club by obviously the current champion Lando Norris. And here, this is a good overtaking opportunity. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th here. You will be paddling down the straight, but actually I did find out because you're running such a high winds, it's very difficult to actually even get to the 8th gear, and you brake right around the 100-meter board with authority and then turn in. You can notice the curves are a bit different. They are much higher, especially the inner curve. So that makes it actually more difficult to turn in over here. The car is very, very unstable. The prancing horse, what are we prancing over here as you engage the DRS? Here we will of course have the straight mode. So you just have to again, feather the throttle a little bit. Then you will be heading 7th gear and you brake and turn. That is the key over here to mastering over here the turn 2, because once you brake and turn, then obviously you can nicely position the car once you feel the grip. Just like my engineer Mark said, there are lots of the squats of the throttle, and over here immediately you give it the throttle, you give it the full beans as you're heading to the corner where Felipe Massa had a terrible accident in 2009, obviously 17 years ago. But here you can see that signage. You go from 8 to 6 or 7 to 5th. I prefer to go to 7 to 5th because this climb corner, it looks okay in a slow motion than what we are doing now in a warm-up lap, but it's really difficult to stay on track. Look at these slides over there. Wow, the twisters. That is the water park, which is actually also not a bad place to see the cars a bit more from the distance. But around the water park, this is one of the keys to the fast lap. If you can get on the throttle as quickly as possible without the car again spinning on you, you can easily get a couple of tenths here. Brake with authority, I guess from the 6th gear to the 3rd gear, and again try to avoid the curves, the red and white curves. There are kind of 2 of them. You want to go through obviously the shallow ones, not through the elevated ones. 5th, even 6th gear over here, you will be helping yourself a lot with the battery, and you can actually downshift the mid corner, when you downshift, that actually gives the car a bit more of a stability. And obviously over here, you always have to turn in early. That is kind of the key to mastering that Mickey Mouse, that middle section, because if you turn in late, usually you just have to wait, until the track grips up. And then here, 5th, 6th, 7th gear. Actually here, the key to the lap is to try to use the overtake or the hot mode. 7th, 6th gear, quick change of the direction, stay clear of this curve. But ride this curve very high, stay close to the track limits. Again, that is the key to the fast lap as the view paddock club there opens up, because Hungarian will be here for 10 more years at least to come. And here, brake relatively early and take note of the curve and just turn in lightly and then just full throttle, but at the no battery if possible. That is the fastest way, surprisingly, to go around this turn. And then the final turn, before we do the hot lap, 6th to almost 2nd gear, because the rotation is much better than in a 3rd gear. It can give you 10th or a couple of 10th, and that's pretty much how you master Hungarian. And I've always planted it on pole position. So now, are you ready for the hot lap? Let's go! With the Undisqualified champion. Let's go! This is Hungarian. Come on, everybody! Let's go, Undisqualified champion. You see, you turn with authority and go on the power. Keep turning. Yes, that's it. Come on, Undisqualified champion. And stay within the limits. Nice one. Hug that in a curve. And full throttle. Come on, yeah, come on, nice. Yes. Look at it, 65th. 4th, nice. This is how you do it. Wow, what a champion I am. Come on, champion. And go for it, come on. And throw it here to the final corner, just like that. Oh, come on. Yeah, that's it, come on, Alex, a champion. Nice one, all right. We will stay over here in front of that lovely countryside. Yes, we made it. Wow, what a good god lap. Over here we made it pretty much, in less than 78 seconds. So yeah, this is fantastic. This is exactly what I was, hoping to achieve. You can see it was nice and steady within the limits through the chicanes. If you get that line correct, that can give you so much lap time. And yeah, the traction is great, the top speed is great. That's how you plant it on a pole position in Hungarian. Oh yeah! Forza Ferrari! And I already have 5 pole positions. Wow! Amazing! And this is exactly how I achieved it. So I hope you enjoyed this very special hot lap with me, Jan the Small-Son champion, Ferrari's fastest driver. And let's hope that Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc will plant it on the pole position. Obviously with the F1 26 cars, instead of the 2 zones, there will be 4, I believe, yeah. We will see how many, the straight mode zones there will be. But, we do expect over here a couple more, to come, which will obviously aid the overtaking. So it will be quite interesting to see how exactly, you can tackle it here with the F1 26 cars. But yeah, again, it is the circuit, where kind of like in Monaco, you cannot really take a rest. But, once you know how to tackle the corners, you know how to brake, how to go, on the power, when to go immediately on the power, when, to be patient, right? Sometimes you gotta treat that Scarlet, the red Ferrari, as your girlfriend. That is the key to the super lap around the Hungary ring. And that is how we planned it on pole position! So everybody, I hope you really enjoyed it. It was my pleasure. I'm happy I stayed within the limits and was so pacey over here as the real champion. And now all I can say is that before we take that summer break and before we jump into these wonderful water parks, is that we love racing, we love Formula 1, we love Ferrari, Forza Ferrari!